Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Late night for me recording this podcast, but nonetheless, BYU gets that big win against the Baylor Bears. And I thought what Egor Demin and particularly Kanon Catchings put on display in this game, they absolutely saw their stock rise, I think, in the eyes of NBA teams. Now, we had 3 NBA decision makers reportedly on hand in this game. Sean Marks, the GM of the Brooklyn Nets, Mike Dunleavy Jr., who is the GM of the Golden State Warriors, who the Utah Jazz were actually playing last night, but he was not in Golden State. He was in Utah watching this game. And then obviously Danny Ainge, the CEO of the Utah Jazz. He attends nearly all, if not all, BYU home games. But those 3 were among the reported 32 different NBA scouts, executives, whatever you want to term them, across 15 different NBA franchises who are on hand. I have it on very good authority that at least 5 Utah Jazz personnel were there. I would imagine guys like Justin Zanuck, the GM. I don't know if Ryan Smith was on hand, but the thing is, there were a lot of NBA people, and they were treated to a show of the 3 prospects they were probably most looking forward to. I already mentioned it, VJ Edgecombe. What a performance by him. You can tell that this is a kid who's going to be a special player with his athleticism, his ability to shoot in big spots. Everything that he has in his tool belt screams NBA, legit star, top 5 type talent. On BYU side of things, Egor Demin, I think, did nothing to hurt his image as a lottery pick. And in fact, I think the way that he managed this game really had some fine moments. The step back 3 that he hit was absolutely phenomenal. Now, he came back down the court and hoisted up an ill-advised 3 shortly thereafter. So there's the shot selection discussion with regards to Egor Demin, but his ability to distribute the basketball, attacking the rim, he showed nothing in this game that I think would make an NBA talent evaluator say, yeah, he's off our draft board. I thought he absolutely made himself money, but the big star of the night, there is just zero doubt that Kanon Catchings made himself NBA money last night. And I still think that Kanon, I don't know what his future holds, whether he would come back for a second year at the collegiate level or take his chances potentially as a second-round pick. But what he did in this game, going 8 of 8 from the field, showing an ability to shoot it from every part of the court. I thought he showed an improved effort on defense. Was it perfect? No, by no means is it perfect. He also showed a willingness to go in there and battle for rebounds at points. I think NBA teams who may have written him off earlier this season may have said, hey, we got to keep an eye on this kid. Now, if he wants to continue to add money to that proverbial pot, speaking of his NBA future, he's got to replicate these type of performances. Now, I'm not saying replicate shooting 100% from the field. That's just darn near impossible. The law of numbers, as we like to call it on the KSL Sports Zone, will catch up with him. And he's obviously going to come back down to earth with regards to his shooting percentages. But the effort level, the high-level shot making, everything that he put on display in this game against Baylor, so long as he continued to do that in Big 12 play here, there are going to be NBA teams saying, okay, maybe he's finally figuring it out here. I think it's the same thing with Egor Demin. He took some time, obviously coming off that knee injury that he had that knocked him out for the full month leading up to Big 12 play, and he looks like he's finally running into form. If these 2 freshmen, both of them 6'9", blessed with God-given talent, height, length, athleticism, shot-making ability, court vision, you name it, they've got all of that in spades. If they start to really come into their own, BYU is going to benefit, A, by having a much more potent lineup, obviously, with those 2 on the court. But B, they're going to see their stock rise very, very quickly. A lot of us look at NBA draft boards. I do it often because I work for a radio station that we're the flagship of the Utah Jazz, an NBA franchise. We're constantly monitoring what the Utah Jazz might be doing in the NBA draft, especially amidst the season like the Jazz are having currently right now, and saying, okay, what about this guy? How would he fit with the Jazz? What about this guy? The nice part is BYU is part of those conversations for the first time in quite some time. The last time BYU had a first-round pick, obviously, was Jimmer Fredette when he went to the Sacramento Kings. It's been a minute since BYU has had this much attention from NBA talent evaluators, whether they're scouts, GMs, in Danny Ainge's case, the CEO of an NBA franchise. They are getting droves and dozens upon dozens upon dozens of NBA personnel who are making Provo, Utah a stop as they go around the country evaluating talent. And it's because Egor Demin. But the nice part is Egor is going to draw people in, and guys like a Kanon catching who maybe on the periphery of the NBA draft right now, a fringe first round guy, maybe a second round guy in most people's eyes, when he has performances like this with 32 different NBA scouts, etc., in the Marriott Center, that can only help him raise his stock. And I think he absolutely made himself money. And also the byproduct of all of it is that the other guys on BYU's team, whether it's a guy like Richie Saunders, who shows just a penchant for big buckets, making big plays when the game matters, NBA teams will take note of that. I still think Richie, if he were to come out, probably ends up at best a second-round draft pick. But he is, like his two freshman teammates, making himself money with regards to what NBA teams, they may be watching to get a look at Egor Demin or a Kanon catchings. But when number 15 starts going off, makes big plays, well, they're going to note that in their film evaluation, say, hey, keep an eye on this Richie Saunders kid. And that extends out across the entire roster for BYU basketball. But it's really, really cool to see Egor Demin and Kanon catchings show up on one of the biggest stages, maybe the biggest stage to date for the BYU basketball program, and put on an absolutely epic performance. My hat goes off to both of those young men because the lights were as bright as they get. And they're always, you get what I'm talking about. Like the lights are always bright when it comes to guys trying to make it at the professional level and obviously make it to that level via the NBA draft. But when you have more than almost 3 dozen NBA scouts, the 3 different GMs, decision makers, they're watching and scrutinizing your play. Because a lot of times when it comes to these evaluations, they're trying to knock you down. They're trying to essentially find a way to say, okay, is he really worth spending, let's say, a top 5 pick, a top 10 pick? They want to find a way to push you down their draft board so they can convince themselves that X, Y, or Z other player is the better option for their franchise. Both Egor Demin, I also want to keep VJ Edgecombe here, and Kanon catchings, they showed up in a big spot and put on a performance for the ages. We got treated. If any of you were out at the Marriott Center, you got treated to an absolutely epic game. Liam, one of our Locked On Cougars Insider group members, was the winner of our tickets to go watch that game last night. And all of us, the 17 whatever thousand plus people that were at the Marriott Center, got treated to an absolutely epic BYU basketball game. But more importantly, saw 3 faces of the next generation of NBA stars potentially show up under really, really big conditions and perform in a very admirable way. So really, really cool stuff to see both Egor Demin and Kanon catchings go off in that circumstance. Demin, if you didn't catch, it was 15 points, 6 assists. I did have 4 turnovers, so a little bit high on the turnover side of things. But you also look at what Kanon catchings, 23 points once again, 8 of 8 overall from the field. They're just nothing about these performances for both of those young men would dissuade me if I were talking about an NBA franchise and making an evaluation. Nothing from last night would tell me, hey, don't pick that guy. In fact, I'd have a lot more reasons to pick those guys after what they did last night for the BYU basketball program.